We are,
Oh, you had it. There you go.
So
Yeah.
small, we cannot see.
okay. So now we are recording, right? The content of this.
We are,
meeting.
Oh, you had it. There you go. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Gotta mute this part. Okay, hello everyone. We're starting a new topic today, which is a timeline of Jewish history and heritage. Um, I am truly amazed by this chart. I'm very proud of myself for finding it online. I did not do this. It's
A lot of detail in
a lot
there.
of details, but in one page this is it: Jewish history, Jewish books, the most important people that lived in the Jewish history, all the main events of the world, and so much more information. And it's actually it's a great way. It's a beautiful thing because it really kind of like shows you in a nutshell, on one page, has so much information. So actually giving a course of a few lessons about this topic, I think is really fascinating and will be very interesting for us. Maybe I'll try to bring it even on a larger page last
I was
time.
gonna ask if you have a magnifying glass.
Right, I know.
Or we could also
No.
send it out.
I could send it. No, but I'll
Yeah.
print it also next time.
Too much money to send around.
But the reason I decided to deal with this topic is because I've been getting a lot of questions from people about like when I say Talmud, like what do I mean? Okay, what is the Talmud? When I say Mishnah, what does it mean? Okay, and even people who've heard these terms like, oh, when exactly is that? And when I say thousands of years ago, I was like, how many thousands of years ago, right? Because Judaism is not a new religion. It is a religion of thousands of years ago. And when I say Rambam or Maimonides, where did he live? What did he do? Who are the most important people that make the history of the Jewish people? And that's sort of like one question. But really what's more interesting for me in this question, which we'll kind of like see, and I'm not a historian, I really want to say that, and therefore what's more important for me as a rabbi is like the books of the Jewish people. Okay, this is really the main question we're going to be dealing with, which is the books of the Jewish people, the books that make the Jewish people who we are. We have a long legacy, a huge legacy, and a huge wealth of Jewish books, many in Hebrew, Aramaic, other languages, that make up our Jewish library. And it's interesting, right? As the world kind of like fades away from printed books, okay, I think this is really the time to recall these Jewish books. Many of them, by the way, are online already. Even books that are out of print already, they are already online. People scan them, and you can find them. There are, maybe we'll talk even about that. There are websites which is called Otzar Sfarim, the book's treasure, and it has like more than 150,000 Jewish books scanned to it. And when I say 150,000, I mean that one book could be 24 books, right? Because it's like the author, it's like what he wrote throughout his life. And so it could be, so we're talking about millions probably of Jewish books that are out there.
Do they have the
Rabbi?
Talmud online?
Yes, yeah, they have different versions of the Talmud online.
When you say Jewish books, what do they use? Do they use Jewish authors or just Jewish biblical books, or are they looking at books that are about Jews? I mean, what?
Yeah, so when in this specific topic, they're talking about Jewish books, meaning that are about Judaica, about about the religion, about halacha or Hasidut, and really that's also what I'm going to be focusing on, which are books that create the Jewish religion and culture and the ongoing, vibrant spiritual being of the Jewish people from the literature point of view. And therefore, your question is very good. I am less interested in books written by Jews, okay, unless they wrote it about Jews, and Jews are the topic. And we're only going to look at a select number. So therefore, people might dispute and say, "Wait, what about this book? How come it's not here?" Etc. So first of all, we can bring these books to the table, and if anyone feels that we're missing something here, we're in an open lesson here. So feel free to bring that as well. Yeah.
Were the Dead Sea Scrolls? I know they're written in Aramaic and they're at the Reagan Library or some facsimile are there now. Are they about Jewish history, the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yes, the Dead Sea Scrolls are about that, and actually,
Some of it's scripture, though. isn't
yeah,
it?
actually, thank you
Torah.
even for reminding me that because I would want to add them. So thank.
Well, the fact that they're at the Reagan Library right now might be interesting for this group. I don't know.
Yeah,
I went to see.
Maybe we'll go.
they
I
they
think
are. Yeah, they are unknown. I think majority of them are in Israel. They're coming from Israel.
I saw in Chicago.
They were stored in Israel, but at one time, a guy from Cincinnati, HUC, supposedly had something to do with finding them when I lived in Cincinnati in the 1960s.
Mhm.
Well, I don't think it was an American who
No,
found
it was
it.
a-
It was an Arab. It
Found
was an
them.
Arab shepherd or.
Yeah, an
something like
Arab
that.
boy.
Yeah, and that, yeah.
He was
Well,
a
but-
Reformed Jew and HUC was in Cincinnati.
Mhm.
And there was some big brouhaha about it in
No, well,
1960, I was
yeah,
giving
we'll
birth to
definitely talk
children. I
about
wasn't
that.
that interested.
And
But I remember it now,
let me also, now that you mentioned that, let me also add the Cairo Nizam, because that's also very important. So you see, as we go along, I'm remembering
How about the
books.
The Syrian Aleppo? Is there anything in there that?
Oh, well, that's the Bible.
Okay.
So
But I have a question. Are you going to prepare some short handouts about each book when we are going
Yes,
to talk? So we are
exactly.
going to have it.
Yeah, that's gonna be take me some time, but I'm gonna prepare that, and hopefully next week I'll start bringing already sources. If we finish the timeline here today, but we're gonna have like a folder, and then we'll add these sources each time, so we can actually, when we say Talmud, we'll actually look at a page of the Talmud and see what it's about. And there's some topics that I am more knowledgeable about, and there's some topics that I'm less knowledgeable about, and we'll sort of like do it together. Okay, like Kabbalah, I have to be honest, is I know a little bit, but I'm not interested so much in Kabbalah. I get a lot of questions from people about Kabbalah, and I refer them to other friends. I'm less interested in that topic, and I can explain my reasons for that when we get there. But it's important for me to have like a fair notice about some of these things, that not only that I'm not an expert, I'm also not, it's part of Judaism, but it's not, for me, for example, it's not an integral part of my Judaism, and for others it is, and it's okay.
So I'm looking at the Kishinev pogrom. 1903.
Yeah,
And that was about the time there was a major wave of Eastern European Jews coming to this country, correct?
right, exactly.
So was it
Because of that.
because my father came in
Absolutely.
1901, and now I found out from ancestry that he was of Syrian and Egyptian background, and I have no idea how he got to the Ukraine. He was 6 months old when he came with a family.
Wow.
So I'm
The
trying to
family
figure that
has,
out.
the family has the history. Just because it says Syrian and Egyptian, that just means that the line came out of the,
Right, but how did they get to the Ukraine? That's what I'm
I
trying to
don't know.
figure out.
That's a good question. In any event, a very good book that people want to really dive into the main books of the Jewish people is by Barry Holt, Back to the Sources, Reading the Classic Jewish Texts. And in here, he also talks a lot about, the major books of the Jewish people. And there are a lot of scholars that are participating in this book as well. And from time to time, we might refer to this as well. I'll just pass it along, just make sure it gets back to me. at the end.
One of the questions is the Shulchan Aruch in here anywhere?
Yes,
Yes,
it is.
Where did I miss it?
It's down there, I thought.
I'll show you in a
We
moment.
got a lot of information.
A lot of information.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Found it.
so, when we talk about Jewish books, first of all, we need to understand that there is some tension between having a printed book and the kind of like the guideline in Judaism that has been ignored over the years that you're not supposed to write anything but the Torah. Interesting, right? The Torah is written, okay, and then there's the oral Torah, okay, the one that's passed from generation to generation. At a certain point, okay, they realize that if you pass on too much information orally, you'll have to forget it. Okay, you can't. There's like a certain amount that you can pass, and that's when they started printing also the oral Torah. But that is counterproductive because once you print something that relates to the Holy Scriptures, it becomes holy in itself. You see what happens? Okay, let's say I write my commentary, okay, to the Torah. It's my commentary, okay. It might not be a bestseller, okay, but maybe in 100 years from now, someone's going to pick it up and say, "Oh, that's very interesting what that rabbi had to say," okay, and maybe they'll pick it up and study it and something like that, and maybe 200 years later, someone's going to say, "Wow, we've been studying this for 100 years now. It must be something very important." Okay, and no, I'm not. I don't have a commentary in the Torah. It's like you could take anyone else. I'm kind of like describing the process of how these things happen, and you see it happening. Okay, and suddenly that commentary is getting an authority, not just because it's written well or because it has a validity in itself, okay? It's getting codified in a way because, everyone's talking about it, and this becomes like the norm for what the commentary is on that specific passage in the Bible. And again, this is just an example to how commentary or how oral Torah becomes holy in a way as well. So the rabbis tried to avoid that. They didn't want that to happen. And that's why they said you cannot codify, you cannot put it in writing. However, there's so much that one person can remember and memorize, okay? So the great scholars of Judaism today, some of them know the whole Talmud by heart. They know the whole Bible by heart, but they can't know all of the Jewish history writings all by heart. It's just impossible for one human mind to have that. So that's why it was put in writing eventually, and that's why over hundreds of years, thousands of years, some of these writings have become so popular and so revered, so they became holy themselves.
So would that apply to Maimonides' writings then?
Yeah, it would apply to a lot of these writings. You know, Maimonides, for example, when we get to him, some of the books that he wrote were burnt, not by Gentiles, not by the church. Okay, the church did burn the Talmud in 1241 in Paris, for example, because they were concerned about, you know, what's this Talmud all about. But Jews, rabbis, burned Maimonides' books because they were concerned with concepts that were in his book about, you know, his approach to the life after and other things like that that they did not appreciate or like. Okay, and but today we all revere Maimonides and see him as one of the greatest scholars ever of Jewish writings, and this is the best example to show how things evolve and change as well. Okay, so let's try and look at our Jewish history. I'm going to try to do it on the screen here. Okay, so maybe it's a little bit easier for people to see it here. Actually, maybe I think if I do it like this, I wonder if I could like no, it's not gonna work. Yeah, let's share it without the line, just like this. All right. Okay. We have to start at the bottom. Okay. On the left side, where it says Hebrew year. Okay. You see that?
761.
Yes,
3761
right.
BCE.
BCE.
Oh,
Okay.
376, yeah, BCE.
Okay, you see that? That's Mazel Tov. The world is born. Okay. So according to the Jewish tradition, the world is right. What year are we in now? 5778. So that's how old the world is, according to Jewish tradition. I'm not getting into, you know, is that possible scientifically or not? Probably not. And how do you reconcile that with, you know,
But even when you address that, it historically, biblically, numerology was a big thing. Numbers didn't necessarily mean what they ostensibly said. I mean, the number 7 was very common.
yeah. Yeah, and you're right that, you know, that the world was created in 6 days, etc. It obviously comes for religious reasons, and there's a theological reasoning behind it. Okay, but
Excuse me, Rabbi, can you hide your bar with the I don't know what it is, with all the little home and insert and all that. On the far right, there's a little arrow, but keep going to the right. Yeah, right down there. Go down a little bit. Down, down, down. Yeah, right there, that little arrow.
Oh, click 2.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. So we are here at the bottom, okay, on the left side where I think you can see the mouse here. So I'm not getting into that because, okay, that's maybe a discussion for something else, but I just want you to see what goes on, okay, all along here between the creation of the world and the year 761. Okay, so in the year 761, if you go up now and you see it says Jewish literature above that, there's no Jewish literature written there.
Mm.
And then it says Jewish historical figures. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And you have there Adam and Eve. Okay, you see that? So that's like when we try to understand how this timeline is built. So Adam and Eve, obviously, they're the first ones. Okay. Now let's go up one more and see it says world events. Okay. What are the world events here? And by the way, you have a timeline. This is like this is the year 3500 BCE. Okay, so the creation of the world, the Hebrew date is 1, okay, but it's around the year 3500.
Well, it
So
shows
there's
37,
agricultural,
61.
The
Revolution.
agricultural revolution and
Vine.
wine domestication, okay, vineyards, etc. People learn how to do wine. And so these kind of like things are happening
But that's only in the Israel area.
in the
near areas, because
Mesopotamia.
yeah, because agricultural revolution occurred in multiple places around the world.
Well, but I don't know. Do we have evidence about what went on in India around that time or other places?
China.
China, we have.
Africa.
Africa, I don't think we have
Well,
any
the first
records.
kingdom was Egypt, according to this,
Yeah,
in 3100.
right. And there are approximately 100,000 residents in Egypt at that time. Okay, so but we're going too much to the right. Okay. And then the next part is rabbinical era. So there's no rabbinical era right yet. Okay. So it's just like the beginning of the world. Above that is control over the land of Israel. Who has control over the land of Israel? It's unknown at these years. Okay. And then above that, we have Jewish events, which we still don't have anything significant then. We're going to relate to the flood of Noah's Ark later. And a Jewish population, which again, there's no Jewish population at that time. Okay, so this is just like a way of how to read this.
An amazing amount of information, dear.
Amazing amount of information, right? Now, if we move a little bit more to the right, to the year 1761, okay, so now we are 2,000 years after the creation of the world. Now we have a little bit more stuff, interesting stuff going on. We have Noah, okay, we have Abraham and Sarah, the founders of the people of Israel. Isaac and Rebecca, right? Abraham and Sarah's son. Jacob, Leah, and Rachel. Okay, Jacob, who later on becomes Israel. Some of Jacob, the tribes of Israel, the sons of Jacob. Okay, so they are at this timeline as well. And this is all happening in Canaan, because then we also have Moses and Aaron a little bit more to the right. And like I went a little bit to the right. Okay, and if we go back up, world events. So we have true writing invented. So what Larry was talking before about writing and the Akkadian symbols are invented around that time. So it's interesting. So even if the world has existed for years and years, culture and writing only comes into place around this time. So it's kind of like recent if we think about it in, the millions of years that there is life on Earth. That civilization is kind of like new, right? In a way. Maybe that's what the Bible is referring to when it says like the creation of the world. Maybe that's what they are referring to.
For
Like
sure.
just the fact that they're human beings, okay, that's nice. Okay, but the fact that there is human beings that could do something with their mind and write and have culture and languages and build and create things, have developed vineyards and wine and other things like that. That sort of like, I think, is like maybe the essence of the concept of the creation of the world. And there's also the code of Hammurabi. Okay, Hammurabi was a king in Babylonia, in Acadia as well, and they had a very developed kingdom there, and they found his code of law in the 19th century, just now, a few hundred years ago. They found it in the archaeological diggings in Iraq of today. That's the ancient Babylonia. And they actually found this whole code of law, which is very interesting. And a lot of things are parallel to the code of law in the Bible, and a lot of things are different, which is also very, very interesting. So to have a legal system shows of like the level of that society, right? So that's already impressive.
When you say true writing invented, are you talking about Hebrew or some other language?
Before Hebrew, probably. This is Akkadian and probably the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Before that, we see like the prehistoric humans were like making different symbols or notes or drawings in the caves, right? But they're not always consistent, and they're not a language. They were like, signing to each other in a way. But to actually have a whole system of a language and writing it is only invented here, and it's not Hebrew, which is the first language. First one is
pictorial
Sumerian.
Language. Like pictorial language was probably invented earlier. If you look at the hieroglyphics in Egypt, in the caves. I mean, there's pictures of everything. You can see wars and
but that's not a language yet. It's not.
It's a story of some
It's
sort.
a story, right? But to have like characters and that you connect them and you can, speak from them, that's relatively new. That's much newer.
Was the cuneiform part of Assyrian, or not Assyrian, Babylonian?
Yeah, the cuneiform is from the Akkadian, and that's really the foundation of languages for today. And if we go up here, so the land of Israel is in the control of the Egyptians and the Canaanites. Okay, and we know that, and the Bible also acknowledges it, that the Canaanites are the ones that are controlling the land. When Abraham gets there, that's what we know.
And the Philistines?
And the Philistines come later.
Okay.
They come from the area of Greece and Cyprus.
Yeah, they
That's
don't know
where
for
they're
sure,
coming from.
but that's what I think they suspect.
Yeah, that's what they're suspecting. And it's probably as a result of a war between the Egyptians and the tribes there that they kind of like migrate to the land of Israel. Okay, and a major story that happens then is the flood, Noah's Ark. And that flood, one day we'll study about that. It also appears in the Babylonian literature, okay, of Numa Elish, the stories of Numa Elish, which is stories that were found, again, in the 19th century. Just now, they were found in Iraq, and it was like pretty shocking to see all these mythological creatures and these mythological stories that that existed back then that we didn't know about at all. We thought it was like only in the Bible, and then suddenly we see that other culture had similar stories, like the flood.
Does the
Okay.
Gilgamesh
Gilgamesh.
has it too?
That's the Gilgamesh stories, right? And I mentioned my ex-wife, she actually wrote a lot about that, and she even wrote children books on Gilgamesh,
Oh,
which
that's
were very
interesting.
popular in Israel. So it's pretty amazing to see the influences between other cultures on the Jewish culture, or influences from the Jewish cultures on others. And I think we're going to see that theme of influence from the general culture on Judaism. We're going to see that theme throughout history. Judaism is not an isolated religion. It's a strong religion with a very strong backbone and a very strong core ideology, but it's influenced all the time by other religions and cultures. So, for example, like this is such a beautiful example of Noah's Ark, that Noah goes and builds an ark and sort of like saves humanity in that sense. And here, this story is also in the Babylonian and Akkadian cultures as well, with a different twist, okay? And there are a lot of gods, and there's not just one god, okay? And the gods there are very nitty and gritty, and they're very envious of human beings, etc., and they behave like little children. It's not like the God of Israel, which is, like God as we would expect God to be. But the interesting theme is that the story there exists of a destruction of the world and a flood, etc.
Do they have that in other cultures too, like India and China? I don't know.
I don't know. That's a
I'd
good
have to
question.
look it up.
Rabbi, can I make a comment? If it's not good time, tell me.
Yeah.
No, I'm so confused now because all the time I was thinking that everything created, humans and everything what we have, it created from this era where this God, which what we have, that Christians, I think they agree with the same thing, that we were beginning of everything.
Well,
Now what we are talking that, you say, what, maybe somebody had. So just my question is, did somebody debate it? Did they say that they had something like before this time?
well, what I'm bringing here is more from a from a research point of view, from like a more like academic maybe point of view, because the traditional way of thinking is really like the world was created in 6 days by God creating the whole world, okay? The more scientific approach is a little bit more critical of that notion. And I'm not here to judge which is correct or not. We're just trying to, and I'm not trying to reconcile this either. I'm just trying to present the different views in that sense. So I am recognizing that there is a more scientific approach that says the world is millions of years old.
But like
Okay.
we Jews, we make excavation, we find some other things, we have those books. What about others? Do we have anything like somebody that said You know what? We found something really.
Yeah, so
started
these
like-
things were
It has
found.
to be facts.
Yeah. So these things were found in archaeological
Later,
excavations.
but later than this.
No, they are preceding this.
President.
Yeah.
So this
Virtually
is-
every society has a creation myth, and the creation myths that are really relevant, I think, to the Jewish people. The evolution of history that is relevant to the Jewish people really is that of the Fertile Crescent, beginning in Sumeria with cuneiform and, the gods Enki and Enlil and all that Uruk, where Abraham came from initially, and the Akkadians, and subsequently Babylonians, and on around into the Levant. So that's the perspective that Judaism really follows. But there are there's a whole host of other kind of unrelated and very difficult to understand myths and creations. But I think the one that we follow is pretty much this tradition.
Yeah, and everything I'm saying here also is actually based on facts. Like the Noah's Ark, okay, is presented in the Bible as a story. Okay. The stories from the Babylonian era on the it's called the Gilgamesh story, which is like the equivalent of the Noah's story, are documented.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's something else, but even when we go to the Torah and you start out in Bereshit, there's two versions of creation, and then there are other examples
Right.
throughout the whole Torah where things were meshed together. So it's not like this is the one.
Yeah. It's not one document written by one person. That's also pretty clear.
And-
It's probably a compilation of different stories and sometimes different narratives that were put in together, even in the Bible. And there's like one redactor. It's like not one editor. It's like a redactor, someone who's sort of like put it all together and try to somehow make sense, but sometimes it's not always coherent.
So, Do evangelicals read gospel? We have our Haftorahs.
Uh-huh.
I have a daughter-in-law who's a born-again evangelical. And when they read gospel, it sounded to me like they're on the same pages that we're on in our Haftorahs.
Well,
Interesting to me. And
Yeah.
then when they started celebrating Hanukkah in the family, she said, well, Hanukkah's not in the Bible. Well, now I see the Maccabees came a lot later over here.
Right.
And so they're in the Mishnah or they're in the Zohar, they're somewhere else, but they're not in the Torah.
Right. Well, we're
Well,
gonna
yeah,
locate
limited
exactly
amount
where
of
they
stuff
are.
in the Torah.
Okay.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
it's real interesting to me because I always say to my grandchildren who are not raised with any religion that Jesus went to heaven, if you believe that, and he was Jewish. And that's my answer to me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, it is what it is.
Okay. So what other things happened at that time? God's covenant with Abraham at 1731. In 1676, the binding of Isaac. 1523, the journey to Egypt. And 1313, Exodus from Egypt. All these things sort of like are the ones that happened in the Egypt and Canaanite era, that they had control over the land of Israel. Okay, so that's sort of like what happened there. And now if we go back down to the year 2761, okay, before that on the left side you see there's like a star. Okay, so we're now looking around that. You see above Jewish literature, here's the first book, the Torah. Okay, you see that?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, so the Torah is estimated, we don't have exact evidence about that, but the estimation is that it was around this year, okay, that it was written, okay? That's not the whole Bible, okay? That's just the 5 books of Moses that are written around that time, okay? And then in terms of the Jewish historical figures, so it's Moses and Aaron, we talked about them already, King Saul, Samuel, the prophet, Ruth, Samson, Dvorah, the prophet, Joshua, who led the people of Israel into the land of Israel, King David, and let's even include King Solomon, who built the temple. And then we go up and we see what were the world events that happened around that time. So first we start at minus 563. Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, is born, according to their tradition. Okay, so just so we get like a perspective of what else is happening around the world when art, just a few hundred years before that, the Torah is kind of like coded, is written, and a few hundred years after that, Buddha is born.
Rabbi, what year on here would be the discovery of the book of Deuteronomy?
That's more like minus 700, I think. What else we have here? Minus 221, China unifies 40 million people and builds the Great Wall. Okay, so China is already a huge empire, but no one heard about it, right? It's not in any of the, it's not in the Bible. It's not in, in the Greek. The Greeks don't talk about it. Like, there's like not much is known about them, right? They're kind of like distant culture.
Is there an era when above where it says currency invented 640? It's got 1200 for the Trojan Wars. Well, 1200 should be further to the left.
Yeah, I see what you mean. That's, yeah,
Right.
so it's like
Yeah.
it's a mistake here. You're right. So the Trojan War is much way before that. And currency invented, which is also interesting, right? That before that they were just dealing with gold and silver, and now they have coins that represent values for money, for these things. So that's around that time. And then if we go up and we see rabbinical era, so it's not necessarily the rabbinical era, but it's the era of the patriarchs and the era of the judges and the era of the kings and prophets. Okay, that's through that whole timeline of, let's say, between 1500 to 500 BCE. And control over the land of Israel is first of all by Israel, all of Israel, and then by Israel and Judah, because there's like a split between the kingdoms of Israel and Judah, and then there's Assyria and Babylonia that come and take control over the land of Israel. That's with the first exile from the land of Israel before the second temple is rebuilt. And now we go up to see that part, okay? And we see already 5 million Jews are in Israel and Babylonia, okay, around the year 800, okay? We see that and we see that most of them are in the land of Israel, right? A tiny bit of them are in Asia, Africa, and Turkey, which means They are in Babylonia, really. That's where the majority of them are. Other interesting dates is 957, the first temple is built. Minus 924, the division of the kingdom, Israel and Judah, which we hear about in the Bible. Minus 720, exile of the 10 tribes by Assyria. Okay, I'm reminding us we are Jews, okay, because we are from the tribe of Judah. But there are other brothers, right, of Judah. There's Ephraim and Manasseh and Dan and Asher and all these other tribes that were exiled in the year 720, and they've never returned. Okay, some people say that the Ethiopians, for example, are from those descendants. Some people say that in India there's the sons of Manasseh. It's like a huge tribe of people. There are millions of people there. Some are already starting to return to the land of Israel. Okay, so there's like a lot of Israelites spread throughout the whole world that we don't know about, the lost tribes, right?
Japan.
Japan, I don't know. I don't.
Yes, I was.
You've heard that? Really? That's interesting.
Yes.
There are Jews in Japan.
Well, there are Jews in Japan, but I'm talking about the lost tribes.
I think
Yeah,
they
it just came with,
exactly
the
the
war.
same.
Yeah,
Because-
no, they were before.
Yeah,
But Joe, they
I've read
weren't-
that they were
they were
pretty much
traitors.
dispersed after the
Yeah.
exile.
Yeah, it's very hard to know already with the change of DNA. It's like exactly if these are really the lost tribes, and these are traditions, that there's no actual proof, but these are very interesting assumptions. In the year minus 586, the destruction of the first temple by Babylon. Okay. And then
Assassination of Gedalia.
and then 586, the assassination of Gedaliah and the Babylonian destructive response. Okay. 538, return to Zion following Cyrus's decree. Okay, so if you remember, I talked about it a few lessons ago. 70 years after the exile to Babylonia, the King Cyrus declares that the Jews are now free to go back. Okay, and they are, they were mistreated, and they could rebuild their temple. Okay, yeah.
Most of those are, the vast majority of the Jews who were held in captivity in Babylon and released by Cyrus were from the kingdom of Israel. So
Yes.
not all of them were lost.
Well, the kingdom of Judah.
No.
From
No,
the tribes of Judah, a lot of them were.
actually there were 10, maybe 11 tribes in the city, in the kingdom, in the divided monarchy, in the kingdom of Israel, maybe 2 tribes in the kingdom of Judah. And the Babylonians really captured predominantly people from the kingdom of Israel.
I thought they were already-
I'm more
I
familiar
don't think
that
that's
the
right.
Assyrians are the ones
Right,
that are exiling the tribes.
that's
Oh,
before.
Well,
And maybe they take control of them, maybe they release some of them, but there are a lot of there's some of the tribes that remain in the land of Israel, and then when the people from return from exile, they have a few disputes and some wars even between them.
Well, isn't
Um,
Israel where we've also got the Israel Talmud? rather
No, that's much later.
It is much later.
Yeah, that's only from the Judeans. In the year 523 is when we assume Purim happens, where the Jews are saved from a planned massacre. You remember that whole story? We're going to be celebrating very soon and eating hamantashes, right? The years of the person who tried to create that massacre.
Haman.
And in the year 515, the second temple is built. Okay,
What's the significance of the stars next to those three dates?
It's Jewish.
It says Jewish calendar events.
It's right at the
Okay.
top of the page.
They're the
Oh.
little icons.
Thank you.
Okay, and that's a very good question. For example, when we say in our Kiddush, Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim, right? Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim, right? We remember the day that the Exodus from Egypt, and that's the date. It's like a Jewish historic date. The destruction of the first temple is Tisha B'Av. Okay, the assassination of Gedaliah, there's a fast for that. Or Purim is on a specific date. And you've touched on a very interesting topic, which is Jewish memory and how we remember things. We remember things by having holidays to commemorate them. And here are some examples of that.
So the first temple, are the ruins of the first temple still visible in Israel now?
No.
Not really, because the second temple was rebuilt there, but archaeologists could differentiate between the different,
Levels.
So right
yeah.
near the Church of Fishes and Loaves and right near the Sea of Galilee, there is ruins of a temple, which was Saul or Paul or whoever was there, depending on when
Are you
they
talking
became-
about the one that's in the northern part of the Knesset?
It's right by the Sea of Galilee. I don't even remember
Yeah,
where I
That
was.
that
Yeah,
has nothing
that's-
to do with the first
That's a
temple.
synagogue.
Yeah,
That was a synagogue.
that was a synagogue, that's
So
not
that
the
was
temple.
Saul's synagogue.
No,
Before-
No, no.
Okay,
Just,
well, it's right near the Church of Fishes and Loaves, which
Yeah.
is, Christian. So I don't even remember
No,
what I
no,
saw. I
so
was
these
so
are
uneducated
different,
at the
yeah,
time.
so these are different eras. Okay, now let's try to go back to the bottom of our chart. Okay. And do one more before we stop for today. And that is in the year no, okay, no, this is gonna be, okay, yeah. So at the destruction of the temple, so we have Ezra, we have the book of Eicha, okay? And to the right of it, we have the Septuagint, which is the translation of the Bible into Greek. Okay, interesting. Then we have the Maccabees, the book of Maccabees, 4 volumes of the book of Maccabees, or sometimes 2 volumes, and the canonization of the Tanakh, the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, is around that time as well, including Targum Onkelos, which is the translation to Aramaic. So, and that's sort of like where I want to end today. Also, with when we go up to the Jewish historical figures, so we have Ezra and Nehemiah. We have Esther and Mordechai. Okay, from the Purim story, leaders of the Jewish people in Persia, in Iran today. Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel, who prophesied in the land of Babylonia. Jeremiah, sort of like the last prophet in the land of Israel. Elijah, before them, way before them. Prophet Elijah, that we sing every time about him in Havdalah and the Passover, etc. And Ezra and Nehemiah, which were the leaders of the Jewish people that brought them back to the rebuilding of the second temple.
What's
Okay.
the significance of the length of the colored line after those names?
Maybe
They're
when they
different.
lived,
Yeah, that's not.
That's
but
sort of
some
like
of them are
when
short,
they
some of them are
lived or
long.
when they operated. And it could be that it's, yeah, I'm not sure why
Got it.
some are short and some are longer.
Maybe they didn't live very long.
I think, yeah, that's probably how long they lived, but I'm not sure.
Expect
really not
average,
sure.
I mean, you,
Oh,
I mean,
it's
this chart is
well,
thousands of years, so.
it's the,
and
the
you-
yellow one
it's
is the
pretty small.
lifespan,
Also, the,
Yes.
but they don't say what the blue one is.
The blue ones mean they operated in the land of Israel.
Okay.
And the
Yellow,
Yellow is the
Egypt.
lifespan.
no, it's not the yellow, it's orange.
It's not
The orange is that they were like in Asia, Africa, or Turkey, which means they were like Esther and Mordechai were in Persia. Okay.
Okay.
Moses and Aaron were in Egypt. So
Okay.
that's how you understand those colors. Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so we will end right here.
You want these back?
No, you
No,
could take
I
them
will.
with you and study them.
I did find, by the way, that if you log on to that site up there, they have a copy of the map on it.